Good evening, everybody. I'm going to ask everybody to please silence your phones if possible in your pocket so that we can all concentrate on what we're doing here. And I'm going to call the November 15th regular Village Council meeting to order. It is 7 o'clock. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please, Clerk Trapp. Bartholomew?
Here.
Edwards?
Here.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Kwasniewski? Here. President Milzant? Here. All seven present. We have a quorum. Up next on your agenda is the consent agenda. I do need to make two changes to the agenda, so I'd like to pull that out of the consent agenda. In your packet, included in the consent agenda, you also have minutes from October 18th, the closed session minutes, which are on the green piece of paper at your table, from October 18th, council bills and the vendor report. Council bills total $16,854.54, and the activity report $150,158.42. Is there any other changes that need to happen to the consent agenda other than removing the meeting agenda at this time?
I would like to pull out the check registry, got some questions. And then also, Kevin, did you get my email requesting that you print the rest of that stuff? Because I'm unable to open any of those.
Yes, I am in receipt of your email.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the check register report and the agenda.
Okay, so basically we're just voting on the 2 minutes.
And the, while we're still covering for the expenditures, correct?
Right.
Do you have a net amount? Is it? I'll have it with the report for the expenditures as well.
Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? Otherwise, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. What are your questions regarding the council bills, Justin?
On the check register, I guess more clarification. I know a couple months ago we had, I think, contracted with A1 Tree Service or Mount Vernon maybe. And I see now we got another $10,000 on here for budget tree.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to clarification on what that would be for.
That's for work that was done in the cemetery, and that work is approved by the cemetery board.
Okay. That was it.
Oh, that would have been a very simple question that you could have emailed to us and we could have taken care of before this meeting. So future reference, that would be great to get that taken care of. For the agenda, I do need to remove item E, the marijuana ordinance 557 request by Trustee Fowler. It is under the advice of legal counsel and myself that we do not discuss this at tonight's meeting. We have additional applications that have been received by the village office, and we are still in an active and ongoing marijuana process. Therefore, it is recommended that we do not look to make any changes or adjustments at this time until that application process is completed. So I am asking that we remove item E.
And can I ask a question about item E? Before you strike it out?
If you could let me finish first, that would be great. And then I also need to add to item G, the Romeo Lions special event permit for the Samaritan House. Your question, Zach?
Well, since you indicated that we're still receiving permits or applications in as of today, correct?
Correct.
Can we just limit those applications and cut them off
It
as
is
of
under
today?
legal advice that we do not make any motions, action, or have discussion regarding the ongoing process for the marijuana ordinance that we've already voted on and approved and put into place. So therefore, I am asking that that be removed.
So the current ordinance allows a landfall or just a free will at anything east of the bypass towards Powell Road.
Right, the language that is included in the ordinance that I drafted was upon your recommendation to have it specifically state that it would be no further west than M53, and that it would be north of 32 Mile Road, and that's how the ordinance reads right now.
Now, this is currently an area of,
Again,
none
I'm
of us
suggesting that
have
we are
these.
not talking about this item right now,
I
Zach. That
understand,
would be at the
but
agenda item.
You just threw my
I'm-
name in there like that. None of us have this true experience in this area, so that's why I'm bringing up questions about
Now
this
is not
stuff
the
here.
time, and I'm suggesting
Well, can
that
we go
we
to
do
closed
not
session?
talk about this, not at this time. It's not on the agenda for a closed session, and we do not have a legal opinion under which
Just
to
gonna run the
qualify
village
for
into
a
a hole.
closed session.
That's all.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the striking of item E and adding item G.
Watch out, people.
Support?
All in favor?
Quickly, I know you want to remove it, item E. If we're not making any decisions, and we're just having a discussion, I'm just trying to understand what the harm would be in a discussion.
It is
Just
under
for my
advice
clarification.
of legal counsel that we do not have any further discussion because it could give the indication, the perception, that we are negotiating to either prohibit or benefit somebody who has a current active application.
Now, I did talk with legal counsel also. Thank
And I
you.
believe he told you the same thing that I told you on Wednesday, and that he followed up per your phone call conversation.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he
And
did.
then- and
So,
then we-
all
then
in
we went
favor?
even farther with that
Zach, we are
conversation,
not having
which you do
discussion
not
at
wanna
this
hear.
time. No, we are not. I am not willing to let you jeopardize.
It's
I
disrespectful
think
The
for our
Philly
legal
is
liability of
counsel.
jeopardizing the
this
village.
village.
That's who's
We go
jeopardizing.
against legal counsel all the time. Legal counsel told us not to give ourselves raises until we had closed out all of our contracts, and yet we did that anyways against legal
No,
and.
I'm sorry, you're misinterpreting and putting words
No,
in his
ma'am.
mouth. That is
I am
not,
not.
that is not what the point that he made at that meeting. So, again, I have a motion on the table to approve the agenda with those two amendments. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Nay.
That was 3 opposed, motion carries. Okay. On your agenda, under item 4, is the Tilson residence. Before we begin to hear from Belinda Whittier, I'm going to welcome her. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah, Weeder.
Weeder, excuse me. I'm going to welcome her. I'm going to ask her to come forward. I'm going to give her a comforting smile because I know how much courage it takes to not only speak in public, but to also not share the popular point of view on this subject and speak up anyway. Before we hear from Mrs. Weeder, I will remind all of you present and those of you watching online that this community is one with a reputation of kindness and caring, that we are known to step up and help others in need, not bully or shame them for having a different opinion. I will also ask that you be courteous in any comments that you wish to make during item number 6, public comment. Ms. Weeder, you have the floor.
Okay, I'll start off tonight reading the letter that was distributed to the neighbors on Tilson Street. But I want you to know that I didn't write the letter alone. There were five other families that worked together jointly to produce this letter. And it reads, "Dear neighbors, Halloween on Tilson Street used to be a fun neighborly event many of us looked forward to each year. This was many, many, many years ago, and we think that everyone can admit that things have changed drastically. It has increasingly become overwhelming for most of the month of October, with the ever-present huge crowds, as well as the never-ending vehicular traffic. Those of us who live closest to the Dairy Queen and now Rainbow Connection have a very unique and different experience than most others on Tilson Street. The crowd back up, waiting for their turn to walk down our street, or to get a free cone, purchase cider and donuts, causes massive numbers of people, sometimes 6 to 8 people deep, if not more, to stand around in front of our homes for long periods of time. Imagine how you would feel with a large, boisterous crowd hanging around just outside your front door from 8 a.m. in the morning till after midnight. We have had to call the police for blocked driveways, stolen, damaged decorations on private property, verbal abuse, used condoms, dog waste, and beer cans in our yards. This is a residential area first and foremost, not an amusement attraction, which we undoubtedly have become. Advertising on TV stations, maps, flyers, and Facebook postings are circulated beyond our control, but more importantly, without our consent. This is a huge safety issue with many undesirables invading our street, some hell-bent on destruction and theft, and way too many dogs and unsupervised children. This year, we had an ambulance respond to a call during the height of the crowds one evening. This has not happened before in the past. We need to get a handle on this ASAP, somehow curtail it, or put a stop to it altogether. It appears the local businesses are using our residential street to fortify their coffers. While we do not fault them for doing so if they are allowed to get away with it, but shame on us for allowing to be taken advantage of year after year. How do we dial it back in consideration for all our neighbors? We are seriously considering tapping out on Halloween next year, but this would not resolve or dissipate the anxiety we feel every year, day, night of the month of October. One neighbor has advised some of us to just not participate. This clearly misses the point we're trying to convey, and it doesn't solve the problem. We are not so naive to think we can just stop cold turkey with the impressive decorating we have come to be known for, although many of us do support that thought wholeheartedly. Maybe one of the following suggestions would be amenable to all, or at least the majority. Number one, set up the displays whenever you want, lighting up displays only on Saturday and Sunday, beginning at 6 p.m. and ending at 10. Number two, set up displays after the 15th, lighting up displays as outlined above. Number three, post on every social media we are taking a year off to reassess the situation. Additionally, our yards suffer tremendous damage, becoming mud pits every October, requiring reseeding lawns, replanting trees, and ground cover destroyed by the foot traffic at our own expense. October is a wonderful month that we used to look forward to and enjoy, but now we are filled with much dread and anxiety. With the constant barrage of visitors for the entire month, this is way too much for anyone to enjoy. We think it is very important that we do everything possible to maintain and protect our friendly, close-knit, very special neighborhood by keeping it safe and enjoyable for everyone, residents and visitors alike. All neighbors should be consulted when decisions are made that will affect the entire Tilson Street community. Let's get together soon and figure this out. Signed, Concerned and Disillusioned Neighbors on Tilson Street. This letter was distributed to the neighbors a week ago, and I have yet, and we can speak to the other neighbors, but I have yet to have anyone contact me to talk about this letter and try and resolve the issues. And if I could have another minute, I would like to read my own personal statement, and this is to the council. We are here tonight seeking your guidance in helping us deal with a situation that has negatively affected our once tranquil neighborhood. I have lived on Tilson Street for 35 years, and this year was the most chaotic, troubling, and mob-like I have ever witnessed. This should worry you. Crowd control and public safety are not only important issues when addressing this situation, they are essential. There was an emergency call during the last week of October, the first I ever can recall. It was difficult for the ambulance to arrive on scene due to the massive crowds and traffic. time is not on the side of someone in the middle of a medical crisis. This should worry you. Now consider if there was a fire on Tilson Street during October. It would be nearly impossible for a timely response by firefighters, as well as fighting the fire because hydrants are not accessible due to illegally parked cars. Any of these unique, beautiful, 100-plus-year-old homes would be a total loss in a short time. This should worry you. I believe the police should be front and center when these issues are considered. Closing off Tilson Street to vehicular traffic the night before Halloween, Saturday, was, I believe, a knee-jerk reaction to the chaos. But it only traded one problem for another. It turned Tilson Street into a major street party. People will make light of these safety concerns, maybe even laugh, thinking I'm overreacting. But it only takes one emergency for there to be regret and wishing for a do-over. This should worry you. I love my home, it is my sanctuary, but during the month of October, we are basically under house arrest for 30 days. The idea of a compromise must be a threat to some neighbors because I have been verbally attacked for just mentioning a meeting to discuss our options. Some of us have been advised to just not participate, which does not solve the problem. Or the ridiculous comment shouted at me in the middle of the street. If you don't like it, move. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I just would like to thank you, Mrs. Weider, for taking time to come here this evening. It's clear that you are concerned about this issue. I want to take just a few moments to recap the events and facts surrounding this issue and clear up some of the misinformation that is circulating on social media. Ms. Weider came into the Village Hall last week and presented an unsigned letter requesting that it be included in our monthly board packet. She was upset, nervous, and shaking, and it was evident that she had some concerns and was looking to the village to assist her. I shared with her that I would not be reading or putting her unsigned letter in the packets, as is my policy, without her assuming ownership. I told her that if she wanted it included, she would need to come in person and speak on her own behalf here tonight. I then asked her to give me an opportunity to digest the letter contents, as I had not read it prior to her arrival, to have a conversation with our legal counsel and our chief of police, and that I would call her back to discuss this further, to which she agreed. When I did call her back, I informed her that I would not be putting her item on the agenda as a business item. However, we agreed that it could be on the agenda as a special presentation, which is not restricted by any time limit, as is public comments. Special presentations, that time is allocated for items that are informational only and do not necessarily require board action be taken. They do not require special notification to the residents other than normal meeting postings, unlike zoning and public hearing items mandate. Case in point, last month, when Romeo Community School Superintendent Mr. Robinson came to address this body as a special presentation regarding the bond proposal. After my discussions with both Mr. Clark and Chief Dan on the Tilson issue, they agree, and I confirm that this governing body holds no authority, nor does it wish to, over how our residents celebrate any holiday or event, how and if they decorate, or who they invite, intended or unintended, to their homes. Our job is strictly to look out for public safety and to adopt new policies or enforce ordinances already adopted, such as noise, public intoxication, and parking restrictions. All of those we did enforce this year, and we will continue to do so in an effort to keep everyone safe. I leave you with this last thought. If any member of this board wishes to bring forth a proposal or if the residents of Tilson Street come to some sort of consensus and suggest actions that we can collaborate on, I am open to a dialogue and am happy to meet with you. In the end, I know that each and every one of you cares about this village and wants each visitor and resident to feel welcome and safe here. Thank you. Does any member of this board have any questions for Mrs. Weeder at this time? All right, hearing none. Let's move on. I am going to ask that Jamie Lucero be given the floor first under public comment, as there is no correspondence, because I know he has a meeting to get to. He is here representing the special event permit that is on the agenda for later.
Hi, guys. I'm here representing the Romeo Lions Club. I'm the president of the local club. And we're looking for a permit for a special event. We want to do a packed bus event that would support Samaritan House. It would be Sunday, December 12th. We're still unsure. We were going to talk with the village itself to see where we're going to park the bus, whether it be on Main Street or in the parking lot behind Youngers. But as of right now, Romeo Community Schools is on board. They are providing a bus. I talked to Mr. Robinson. He said whatever we need, they're going to support us. BAMS, Youngers, the office, they've all jumped on board as well. We're hoping to get more support from other businesses as well and really make this a community event. And as well as Bruce Township is going to jump on board as well. We're looking to see if Washington wants to join too. So just trying to, help Samaritan House during the Christmas season and see what we can do and how much we can provide them. So really that's it. I don't really have anything written up. This came together very, very quickly.
So you're not sure if you're gonna park the bus on Main Street or behind Youngers at this point?
Yeah. At this point, we have to figure out logistically. A lot of it, what comes into play is the school districts, how comfortable they are. If we park it on Main Street, because it would be the night before, and security is a concern for Mr. Robinson. We want to know how we were going to address security. So we are leaning towards the parking lot just because with the police station right there, a lot more eyes on it.
I guess I'd be concerned about just safety and foot traffic around the bus, possibly on Main Street.
Right.
Traffic going by would be my only concern, but besides that, I like the event.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how we would address that, if you could put barricades around the bus or whatnot. I don't want to get, because I know we can get into the weeds with that. So really just looking to, as easily as this can be done, to do it. So if that means in the parking lot to ensure public safety, totally fine with it. It's more so just how do we get it done?
I make a motion to approve your event permit.
A second.
What is this?
We can take the roll call on item G, because we've added it to the agenda. But if there's any other questions, we can certainly ask him before he leaves the meeting. But I'm confident that between Chief Dan and Mr. Robinson and Jamie, that we can find an ideal location. It was really just to make sure that we had support if we decided to either close down Main Street or the parking lot. If anybody had any objections, I'm willing to hear those. Hearing none, thank you for your comments, and I'll let you know. I'm sure I don't anticipate any problems, but
Awesome.
we'll get together and figure out the perfect spot. And great, it's a great event.
Yeah.
Helping out Samaritan House this time of year is a big need, and thank you for tackling this and bringing this opportunity for all of us to come and support such a great cause. So,
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for your
Thank you,
time.
Jamie.
Have a good night.
all right. So the floor is open for public comment. Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward? Elizabeth Miller,
Hi,
welcome.
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Miller, as most of you, some of you know. I haven't had a chance to meet a couple people on the board, but I just wanted to say thank you to the community for a warm welcome. We've lived here for 15 years, but now I'm in a position downtown as the executive director of the Downtown Development Authority. I'm having fun. There's some of it's a little overwhelming, but it's okay. And I've gotten a chance to know all the different positions that are in the village, and Bill Grandstaff, who's of course on the Planning Commission. I've known him for a long time, being on the Romeo District Library Board with me. And so I'm interested in learning more about how that process works and how we're all sort of interconnected as far as how we make this community what it is. A couple things I just wanted to highlight real quick. I'll probably be coming back to you in January or February with just our year in review of what the DDA has accomplished in the last year. And I've only been there for 6 weeks, so a lot of it happened prior to me. But one of the a couple of the things that have happened, our board, my board, approved a parking study that's being done right now to help understand more of what's, how do we get more parking? You know, how do we fix this problem? And across the board, everyone agrees to that. I've communicated with several businesses that are really excited about coming into town. Some of them are in surrounding areas that are very successful. And what do you think the number one question is? What are you going to do about parking? So I would love to come up at some point. I've talked a little bit with President Malzahn about possibly, I know, yes, another committee, but possibly having a parking study committee once that study comes in to possibly get some people from zoning, from planning, from the village council, some of you who are interested in participating in that, so we can have a collaborative effort on that, so then when we come back to this board who makes the decisions, right, whether we can move forward on some of these things, hopefully it'll be a better informed with some of you actually participating in that. Another thing that's happening within the DDA is that we're updating policies and best practices and putting some other things in place there. I've had the privilege of being able to help out with some of our Facebook posts. We've got a huge thing happening, in case some of you don't know, but President Malzahn will inform you of that in the President's report. So just keep in mind, there are a lot of businesses who are excited about the possibility of coming into Romeo, and that's one of the things that attracted me to this position, is doing that. But we got to talk about some of the other things to get there. As for the whole Tilson Street thing, I have a couple ideas on that in my position on the DDA. So if anybody is interested in what my thoughts are, I'd love to get together with you sometime. So thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm excited to be serving the village. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Anybody else for public comment?
Hello, my name is Danielle Lee, and I am at 171 Tilson. I will admit that it was a little bit difficult for me to come up with public comment today because I just happened to see that we were on the agenda as an agenda item. So while I do not diminish anybody's experience, I would like to share my family's experience on Tilson Street. We are a big family on Tilson Street, some of us living on the street for well over 20 years. I will not speak for everybody. Each of us has our own opinion, pays our own mortgage, and has our own experiences. I don't agree with every political sign and flag that's put up in my neighbors' yards, but I agree with their right to have it. I respect each of my neighbors' right to have an opinion. I respect their right to decorate how they want and when they want. This street is not an HOA, nor do we have to sign a contract requiring us to decorate, regardless of what you might have heard. My husband's family has lived on this street for over 60 years. Tilson Street Halloween has been a tradition for well over 20 years. The last 15 years, we've raised over $100,000 for Romeo schools. Pay to participate, athletic programs, vocational programs such as Fighting Bulldogs. We also donate to veterans organizations such as Wounded Warriors and Folds of Honor. These funds are all earned through volunteers standing in the cold every year selling shirts and cookbooks. I have talked to a few Romeo businesses who said they see upwards of 15% increase in sales in October. The Knights of Columbus raise money for their general fund, which benefits scholarships, food pantry donations, families in need. The Masonic Temple puts on a haunted house and directs traffic from Tilson Street downtown. We did not set out to increase overall traffic in the village or provide an avenue for organizations to raise money that goes back to benefiting our community, but we have. We do not ask for anything in return. We pay for all of our decorations, electric bill, repairs to our yards, and thousands of pieces of candy. What this community has done in the last 20 years is nothing short of amazing. We hear from hundreds of thousands of visitors each year how incredible Tilson Street is. They come from all over, some driving over an hour just to visit our community. Families love that they can enjoy a free night out together. We have people hand us $20 to donate to the scholarship fund because they can't believe how amazing this community is and what they've done. We do not seek out news stations to advertise Tilson Street. There are no maps or flyers that we personally pass out. We have done several interviews per request to share about our street and our scholarship fund, which we typically are on or just before Halloween. Our website and Facebook page are meant to share factual information about the street and when you're visiting. Is it all sunshine and roses? Not always. We do have candy wrappers in our yards and decorations that are pushed over. We absolutely have to reseed our easement every single year if we don't block it off. The crowds are massive from about 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at our end, mostly on the weekends, and it can get hard to pull in our driveways. For my family, the overwhelming support from visitors raising money for our scholarship fund, seeing kids' faces light up when they look at the decorations, and all the thank yous we receive from visitors are the reason we continue this tradition. Contributing to this community is important to us, and we will continue to do so. I do want to thank the village police for shutting the street down and being present on Devil's Night. It did help from what we could see. And I also want to thank you for the extra garbage cans. It actually does help. People do use them, and it cuts down on the amount that's in our yard. Thank you also for the opportunity to share my family's point of view.
Thank you, Danielle. Anybody else? Public comment? Going once? Going twice? Oh.
Not used to speaking in front of people.
That's
My name
okay.
is Sarah Earp. I live at 121 Tilson Street. I guess about Tilson, do we have a village noise ordinance?
Yes, we do.
What is that? What times is that?
8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
To 10 p.m. during like a week or? Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the noise is a little much for me. I had the noise wake up my son the last week of October. He's sick, and there's I don't decorate. I choose not to decorate. I won't participate. That's my choice. But I feel like I don't get the chance to opt out. If I don't choose to decorate, I still get the same outcome as if I decorate or I don't. I still get the noise. And we've got alley, so we get it in the back, the front, and I get now Rainbow Connection to my right that blares music all night. I wish there was some type of something for us residents that don't want to participate, because we don't have an option. And I'm not moving. I love my house, but we don't have that opportunity. And I guess I wanted to know and I understand that you don't want to get involved. That's fine, but I didn't know what the noise ordinance issue was and what the time limits were to that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I didn't state that I didn't want to get involved. I just said it's not our place to say who decorates, who does what, who comes over to visit. I'm absolutely more than willing to engage in a dialogue, and I'm encouraging the entire street, including Pleasant Street, who I have had neighbors, residents from Pleasant Street ask that their street be shut down because of traffic and safety issues from all the people that are in that facility. And I appreciate and I believe that everybody's recognizing that this potentially could be very dangerous. One child that would get hit in the road, right? I know it would be unintentional, but I think everybody there recognizes the crowds and the size do pose a potential hazard. And I encourage everybody to sort of collaboratively think, what can we do? What can we do together as a community to make sure that everybody is safe, and so that people who do not wish to be disturbed, such as yourself, they're respected in some small way. I think it will go a long way. So I'm encouraging everybody to do that. And if I can facilitate, I'm willing to do that.
Can we form some type of, I don't want to call it an official subcommittee, but of residents, maybe on the neighboring streets, other community members, maybe even business people, that we can sit down and have a very calm, open discussion about that topic and try to come to a resolve instead of no one wants to talk to anybody?
I think that's a great suggestion. If you want to figure out, I'm sure that Parks and Rec would accommodate a room for you if you want to take the lead on that and pick a night and reserve the space. I think that would be a welcome addition and an opportunity for everybody to speak candidly.
I'd be willing to do that. Thank you.
Exactly what I was going to get up to saying.
Sorry, we didn't mean to steal your thunder.
I am also a Tilson Street resident. My name is Carol Loading. I live on Tilson Street. I've lived here for 26 years, almost 27. Halloween on Tilson Street, I'm just going to say my spiel.
You took time to write it.
I feel like I've kind
You've
of
got
been
3
shut
minutes.
down
Yeah.
already, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Halloween on Tilson Street was reasonable 26 years ago. Sure, there were many more people than we had ever experienced before in any previous neighborhood we had lived in. Even up to 12 to 15 years ago, it was much more manageable because it was shorter, less visitors, and many more local people. It was advertised primarily through word of mouth and a t-shirt. Now Halloween lasts an entire month with the explosion of social media and many TV interviews. Living at the DQ end is insane. And people in mass numbers lined up down Main Street. It can be a very uneasy feeling when you walk outside into your yard and all you see is a swarm of people lined up down to the Dairy Queen and all the way down Main Street. It is not like it is in the middle of the street. It is not like it is at the other end. There is no way. It can be very uneasy. Now we're talking numbers in the numbers around 60 to 100,000. If you don't think that's unreasonable, I don't know. Yes, it is great. It raises lots of money for great causes. I've worked in Romeo schools for almost 20 years. There's nobody that's more dedicated to children than I am. There's nobody more dedicated to volunteering. But I believe it is reasonable to ask our neighbors to come together and find solutions. I'm hoping that happens, just like you said. To possibly only limit the amount of time or weeks that Halloween goes on. It never was an entire month before. It is reasonable to believe that having thousands of visitors each morning, and they do come in the morning, trust me, because I leave for work in the morning, day and night could cause safety concerns. Emergency vehicles, like Mrs. Weeder talked about, could be delayed for a home on fire, which would be catastrophic for any of us. Mostly, it probably won't happen, right? I heard the person next to me snicker when it was mentioned. It could happen. There's pumpkins lit, there's all kinds of lights going, there's people everywhere, there's people smoking cigarettes, throwing them in my yard. I'm not supposed to get upset about that. There is excessive amounts of visitors crowding on sidewalks, walking down the middle of the street, and the vehicles are bumper to bumper. I watch people walking down the middle of the street because they don't want to wait in line, so they're just walking amongst the cars. Seems to me it's fair to believe that this is going to cause a problem at some point. It is frustrating that year after year we suffer the property and lawn damage. Our residence, located on the alley of Perry and Tilson Street, there are many things that have happened for 26 years. There's been food thrown at our cars, eggs thrown at our windows, fence pieces have been broken, and most disgusting, those who choose to think that it's okay to use our driveway, our parking area, and our alley as a urinal. A few years ago, when my daughter was in Romeo High School playing soccer, she would come home late in the evening, and on more than one occasion, she caught somebody when she pulled into our little parking pad with their pants around their legs. Sorry, it's pretty disgusting to me. This goes on year after year for 26 years. Yes, there's great people. We love the thank yous. We love all the great stuff. But there's also other things that happen. I don't know about any of you, but October is my favorite month. Not anymore. It's not. Linda talked about the neighbors' responses to her suggestions, our suggestions, by the way, about the kind words that people have said. I live and work in this community. Like I said, I work for Romeo Community Schools. I'm proud of it. I teach kids how to read, how to write, and how to act like human beings. How decent people should act towards one another. So I find it very disgusting that people would tell somebody to move because you have a little bit of agitation, frustration. You just want to make it amenable to all. You just want to make it pleasing to all. I don't think that's hard to understand. Like I said, October used to be our favorite month. Now we choose sometimes to go away in October because it's so frustrating. When we first moved here, our daughter, who was born in October, would enjoy both family and friends celebrating her birthday and enjoying a visit to see all the decorations. We hope to continue to decorate. I have decorated for 25 years. That's a long time, 25 years. There needs to be some reasonable limits to the length and hours. A restraint on some of the social media and advertising could go a long way to make our street and community safer. Please, we need to limit the damage and make it more enjoyable for all of us. It will be disappointing if we, the residents of Tilson, can't come to some amenable solutions. I appreciate your time. Sorry, I'm a little passionate.
It sounds like a lot of people are, and I'm really hopeful, Justin, that you can pull something together and get an opportunity to gather everybody to really, so that they can really dialogue this out.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What does the police chief think regarding the crowds?
Well, unfortunately, the police chief is hunting right now and isn't
Yeah,
here tonight.
yes.
I might have to have a few words with him next week when I see him, but I say that in jest.
he's-
I had a conversation with him, yes. He's shared concerns for multiple years. This
I know.
year being no different, and him and I did have a conversation leading up to the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I said, look, Dan, if you think that this crowd control, if the traffic backup is that problematic on Van Dyke, I gave him full authority under his jurisdiction to shut those streets down to ensure public safety, right? He was not as concerned about the ability for the ambulance to get through, although, I mean, it could be potentially dangerous depending, lights and sirens, people typically do scatter, but it would be easier if there was no obstructions. I understand that. So yes, he does, he is aware of it.
Yeah.
They've enforced, many violations, like public intoxication and parking and the noise. They respond to all of those calls as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, if they get called.
Well, we get many.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
But shutting down the street, I don't think really resolved the problem. It
Right, I don't believe it
just
does either.
turned
Right.
Turned
Yep.
it into a free-for-all in the street. And I know he's been worried about it, or they've been worried about it for years, but I guess crowd control should be a police matter, and when it gets like that, 60,000, 80,000 people, I would say, you guys gotta stop.
Well, we will certainly take that under advisement. Again, I've had conversation with him with the small staff that he does have. He feels like they're doing the best job that they possibly can, given the circumstances. All right, is there anybody else for public comment?
One comment, I live on Tilson Street, I've lived on it for about 18 years now, and there's only limited what the village's responsibility would be and I don't think the village would want to do anything without working with the residents on Tilson. We could not allow any cars to be parked on Tilson, so you don't have kids coming out of that. It was mentioned having it one-way street. That would mean posting, during that month or whatever that time period is, that it's going to be a one-way street. That's not going to alleviate the problems, but that can do some of the safety. Any of the things like, personally, I for a few years now, decorate about 2 weeks before, just because I don't want to have that in my house for all that period of time. But any of those kinds of things, restricting when you would light it up, when you would start to decorate, things like that, those all have to come from the residents. There's no authority that the village is going to say, I'm sorry, too many crowds, we're not going to have this. So it really does. I'm glad Justin's going to stand up. I would participate more as a resident than as a representative. But those are the things that we could do, and I think some of those things are good ideas. And maybe lights out at 10 o'clock would be good. I mean, I turn my lights off. On the weekend maybe 11, but 10 o'clock. But there's other ones that are up all night, so people are driving through. I've had people yell in my yard at 4 o'clock in the morning. There's people in my yard, and I'm like, who is that, and what are they doing? So it is kind of an attractive nuisance from that point. But again, it's limited what the village would actually do.
Hi, my name is Jill Hudson. I live at 123 Tilson. I live across the street from Carol and BJ and next door to Sarah. And we're kind of one of the people that did contribute to Belinda's letter in regards to our concerns. I think the three pivotal things that we were looking at were primarily the safety issues, most importantly, the safety issues for the residents as well as the visitors that do come to Tilson. The second thing was the noise, and again, now that we know that there's a noise ordinance, again, we can work amongst our residents to figure out, maybe we do a 10 o'clock shut off. And the third thing was the property damage, which has all been addressed. What I'd like to do is address to Mr. Parker, would it be possible when you do develop this meeting, could the police chief please be included, or some representative from the village police? Because I live right on the corner, and I saw the police one time, and that was the night that they closed the street throughout the whole month. Now, I don't mind calling them every single time someone's urinating in my yard or throwing a condom in my yard. I'm the condom recipient.
Sorry. That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, just when I want to clean up, but the trash, things like that. I was startled by the behavior by unsupervised children. I don't know if these were necessarily children, but young adult walking down, two of them walking down the middle of the street. Car tried to get by, honked his horn. The kid threw his hands up in the air. When the car tried to pass him, he jumped out in front of the car. That was witnessed by myself at 10 o'clock at night. Those are the concerns, the safety concerns that I have. What happens if that visitor would have hit that person, and at that point, how is that even addressed? So I would like to recommend that the village police please be involved in any discussions that go on from here forward. And I was the one that encouraged Belinda to bring this to the city council, because I did not think that they were aware of the multiple issues that we're starting to have down there. I think the crowds are great. I participate every year. I love talking to the people that come to visit and to see us. This year I had a wonderful opportunity to work with the Buzz Lee Scholarship Foundation, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I just think that it's a Pandora's box, and there has to be some way to kind of try and contain this a little bit now, because we are so popular. And I like that. It's great. I say with pride that I live here and that I live on that street. I don't want to have to be the one that says, yeah, somebody got shot in front of my house because there was a gang-related incident.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Any others for public comment?
Thank you, Madam President and City Council. I am not here to talk about Tilson. Sorry. It is about the marijuana. I represent one of the applicants, and I know you're not going to be discussing it tonight, and I don't know if you can just answer generally on when you expect the process to start moving forward. I'm not privy to, obviously, to what the holdup is or what the deliberations are going to be about, but I guess for applicants that have properties under contract or kind of trying to schedule and try to plan to kind of move forward, just an idea if this is like going to be delayed a month, 6 months, 2 weeks.
So while I am not involved in that process from this point forward, my function and the function of this council was to get the ordinance on the books. And if you read through that ordinance, the next step was for the clerk to receive those applications, which she did. She has 60 days from the date of receipt to process and approve them for completeness. And after that, then at the next available village council meeting, licenses, she'll make a recommendation, and village council will award licenses or give licenses based on the time and date stamp and the completeness factor. It does require that a special land use application be submitted to Planning Commission. I believe portion of those were done, not the ones that were received in the office today. So the special land use is still pending. They requested some more information, date and time stamp, and measurements. So we're putting up a process into place to look at the measurements, separating the buildings at this point. So I could say I hope it will be in December, but don't hold me to that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right, let's move on to our officer reports. I know it's already been a long meeting, and I apologize for the length of my president's report. It has been a very busy, active month. All right, my president's report for November 15th. Leaf update. The DPW has been busy leaf vacuuming our streets for the last 4 weeks or so. They will be doing one last sweep of the village on Wednesday, November 24th, weather permitting, to remove what is raked to the easement. So please, get those leaves out to the curbs. No sticks, pumpkins, or gourds in the piles, please. If they are detected, your house will be bypassed. GFL's last yard waste pickup will be on Friday, November 26th. That is 1 day delayed due to the Thanksgiving holiday, so trash and recycling will also be on Friday of next week. The Macomb County Board of Commissioners rejected Romeo's annexation request for the Armada parcels owned by Mr. Zahowski at their meeting on October 28th. I have been in contact with Chairman Don Brown to provide additional information so that he has an opportunity to seek a reconsideration vote or possible resubmission of our request. This annexation request was one of the reasons for the delay in getting a boundary survey needed for the village to city process. I plan to continue to wait for that work to be completed until we are certain of the status of those parcels included in the annexation, which, if approved, eventually needed to be accounted for in the survey. The second coffee and conversation at the Romeo Senior Center was a success. Supervisor Philbrook and I were on hand to listen to some of our residents and their concerns. Of particular concern were their utility bills. Mike and I have asked Parks and Rec to schedule a February and a March 2022 date, so be on the lookout in their upcoming program brochure for those specific dates. So you can join us for an hour and share your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. Elizabeth Miller, our Executive DDA Director, and I attended an open house networking event hosted by the 4 County Community Foundation in Elmont, held on November 8th. This was a great opportunity to share the exciting happenings going on in Romeo, and also to learn from the representatives from Elmont, Armada, and Metamora on what programs they are bringing to their communities. It was my honor to attend the Romeo Bus Driver Appreciation Luncheon that was held last Thursday, and to thank these hardworking men and women who transport our children to and from school on a daily basis. The organizers did a stellar job in treating them to a wonderful meal prepared by Pamela's Catering, and gave them each a gift bag stuffed with all sorts of gift cards and donated items in a show of appreciation. Please remember, when you get your kids on and off the bus every day, to say a kind word of thanks to them. It truly goes a long way in brightening their days. Thank you to our Romeo VFW and to all who came out for the Veterans Day ceremony they hosted in our cemetery last Thursday. We remembered and honored all of the vets, near and far, who gave so much in the protection of our freedoms. Thank you to all the brave men and women who serve this country. James Withrow is still collecting items and seeking volunteers to help serve or deliver free Thanksgiving dinner next Thursday, November 25th from noon to 3 p.m. Dine-in service will be held at the Masonic Lodge, located at 231 North Main Street. If you are able to make a donation or lend a hand or know of someone in need of a meal being delivered, please contact James at 586-781-7590. If you have not heard, there is a great deal of excitement over the joint DDA and Romeo Libraries project to bring the Polar Express to the village in a story walk. The locations have been chosen, and the window displays will begin soon. The projected date to have everything completed is next Monday, November 22nd. Please watch the DDA's website and social media posts for updates and a walking map as soon as they are available. If you haven't noticed, the seasonal Christmas decor is up and downtown. Thank you to the DDA for funding this project, and to Matt and Lisa Jaroche for the installation. The wreaths on the Village Hall windows are beautiful once again, and the lights add so much to the season's festivities here in Romeo. Please mark your calendars and join us in the Village Park for our annual tree lighting and Santa Parade, Thursday, December 2nd. The parade begins at 7 p.m. and will travel down Main Street, beginning at Washington Street and ending in the Village Park. Mr. and Mrs. Claus will be there to visit with all our good little boys and girls. Thank you to the Parks and Rec for making this such a wonderful holiday tradition here in Romeo. Text to MyGov, Romeo's newest option to report issues and receive updates right from your smartphone, is up and running smoothly. To get started, please text in the keyword Romeo to 91896 to receive notifications. Reporting issues have also never been easier. Just text in a keyword or two to 586-281-9281 for what your issue is. For example, text trash pickup or recycling to that number to report a missed pickup, or text the keyword light to report a street lamp not working. There is a link on our homepage of our website, villageofromeo.org, which will direct you to a how-to video if you need assistance, as well as a reporting option if you do not have a smartphone. I will be attending the Michigan Mayors and Presidents Overnight Conference in Mount Pleasant this Thursday and Friday. Agenda items include sessions on the Open Meetings Act, social media and other policies, dealing with the media, consensus and coalition building, and the role of presidents and mayors. I am excited to bring back best practices and ideas from other elected officials who serve in positions like mine. As always, I continue to hold regular office hours to meet with our property and business owners to address their concerns. If you have a concern, compliment, or complaint that you need assistance with, please call my office at 586-752-3565. I'm at extension 3, or send me an email to president@villageofromeo.org. Thank you. Clerk Trapp, you're up.
Okay. On November 2nd, the village cemetery laid to rest Chauncey D. Garfield, who actually passed away in 1939. It was an honor to lay him to rest in our cemetery. The MIT TV did cover the ceremony if you want to check it out. Again, his story, along with many like him, is told on the Amazon Prime documentary Libraries of Dust, and I would like to thank his family, his great-granddaughter, for allowing us to share his story. And it is that time of year again. Santa's mailbox will be coming to the Village of Romeo sometime early next week, right before Thanksgiving. The mailbox is scheduled to be out until approximately December 17th, so the elves have enough time to respond to all the children. That's all I have right now.
Treasurer Maddox?
October 25th, I received from Macomb County Treasurer and the clerk the signed tax settlement, and that consisted of the notarized certificates indicating that the 2021 tax had been finalized. Also on Friday, November 12th, I received a check from Macomb County for the delinquent tax in the amount of $178,974.68. $108,628.36 is delinquent for Bruce, and the remaining $70,346.22 consists of Washington. All the water bills have been processed for the quarter, and any payments that have come in thereafter will be charged the late fee. Are there any questions? That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Trustees, who wants to start? Justin?
Sure. Again, just want to let the residents that have been asking, I still have yet to get a response from Ruth or the MIT TV. I wrote a little statement here for you, Christine, when asked before, you had directed me to reach out personally to the MIT in regards to the donations and getting the information I needed. They have listed you as a volunteer business leader, and you've also helped facilitate these funds. We have a list of questions we would like answers to by the next meeting. We would like a copy of the nonprofit application and its status, proof of the funds balance and their locations. So far, we've totaled the 40 and the 30 in 2 different payments from Ford, and then Ruth in the MIT said that she would contribute another 30. Whose names are on the accounts, what backups are in place in case something happens to the said person. Will the village have access to these funds that were given to the village? Has there a board been assembled? Who's on it, and when does it meet? I've got this, I'll give you a copy, and I'd also like this included in the minutes, word for word, please. Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Fowler? Mr. Hart?
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Edwards?
Nothing here.
Ms. Posanski?
I do. Had a busy month this month. Started off with, after last month's meeting, the next evening I attended Officer Blevins' retirement party. It was hosted at the Bruce Township Fire Department. It was a great send-off for her and a blessing to be there. some kids in the neighborhood made a big card for her, and she knew knew the kids by name, because that's who Officer Blevins was. So enjoy your retirement. Next, I attended the Bruce Fire Department open house. That was a great time, free lunch for everyone who attended. It was nice to meet you could see all of the firemen out there. The kids had multiple interactive things. They were all smiles. And the biggest thing was a helicopter came and landed in the field in the park behind. I mean, I'm pretty sure the kids almost wet their pants. They were so excited. They were shaking. So that was awesome. Next, I contacted our senator's office regarding that House Bill 4722 to let them know that I don't approve of the passing of it, and that I would hope that our senator would vote no on that. That has to do with the, essentially, like Airbnbs, verbos and such, that we should reserve the right as municipalities to make those sort of zoning decisions on our own, and they are trying to, the bill would potentially take that away from us. Next, it was an honor to be a part of the Halloween costume contest judging. I did that along with James Rutho from Wendy's. The kids always come out so excited, parade around, wonderful costumes from homemade to store-bought. They were just, it's great to see their smiles and their pride as they walk around. Next, Ladies' Night Out was this past Friday. That was a great night. The weather was chilly, but it was beautiful. That was a big success, tons of people, and great deals at the stores. Last Wednesday, I hosted the trustee talk. We had a few people in attendance. That was a good turnout. One person versus none is one more person who has more information, so glad with that. The next one will be scheduled for February. There will be quarterly, so I'll give you more information as that one comes closer. And then on October 28th, I attended a SEMCOG Zoom meeting along with President Malzahn, learning about the ARPA funds, and which we will touch base later, how we can apply them and what they can be used for, and being careful how we use them. So that was good information there, and that is it.
Just to touch on the sidewalk, it looks like we're going to start that back up in the spring, unless I get a surprise phone call. But that's about all I have for now.
Perfect. All right. Zach, did you want to report on the Planning Commission?
Yes, we had the meeting last month, and as far as all the provisions weren't met, so the Planning Commission tabled the applications until they go through the process with, I guess, Catherine and our consultant. And also we approved the rezoning of the parcels for that we annexed into the village from Mr. Zukowski. So that's coming up next on the agenda, or later on the agenda. That's it.
Okay, moving on, committee reports. The Bruce Sewer Capacity Subcommittee. I can just recap unless anybody else wants to take ownership of that. We did meet and we had invited electronically HRC, Mike McDonald, and Dan. Sorry, I don't know what Dan's last name is, but he is the one who was instrumental in actually organizing that, and working with Al out at the plant. We received some negative press regarding the length of time that has taken us to address some of these concerns and meet with Bruce Township. I understand that they are much more concerned about the time than the Village of Romeo is, but where I'm not willing necessarily to hurry up and sign an agreement giving them more capacity until we do our due diligence and make sure that not only can our existing wastewater treatment plant handle their request, but we also take a look at possible rezoning in undeveloped areas in the Village of Romeo that would need to be serviced by that facility before we sell it to Bruce Township. So I have prepared a draft letter. I believe you have each reviewed it. I am still waiting for comments back from Mr. Clark on that letter, although he wasn't in attendance to that meeting. And I plan to present that to Bruce Township, just letting him know that we have met and what the next steps that we all agreed on, which were to ask Bruce Township to look at the documentation that they submitted, that Mr. Philbrook submitted to us, recapping all of the existing and site plan approved parcels, as well as accounting for all of the undeveloped parcels in that district that they would probably want to bring into, so that we can get an accounting for how much capacity they actually need. We have some questions from our engineering firm and the accuracy of some of those numbers, so we're asking them to go back and revisit that. Also asking them to do an engineered analysis of the Bruce Township lift station and some of the infrastructure to make sure that their additional request can be accommodated with their existing equipment, so that if we have to anticipate any upgrades, we can also include that in any cost considerations in moving this project forward.
Just to clarify, based on the negative press, the request to them for the lift station and the numbers and the engineering on that's not new. We asked for that months ago, and we're still waiting on that on our end. So for him to say that we're dragging our feet, we're still waiting on them for information.
I had a phone conversation with him after I read that article in the paper, and I said, Mike, what's up with that? And he said, we're just frustrated, and he said, I don't think that's really what I said. I said, well, it's possible that it was misquoted and incorrect, but we agreed that, we would help move this both to the top of our priority list and see if we could get some other dialogue. So we're going to circle back in 2 weeks' time. Mike from HRC said that he thought he could do that analysis based on aerials of vacant land and get an accounting for what that could potentially be developed as. And I'll submit the letter to Bruce Township.
Another concern that arose after our last meeting, what cost is this coming to at the village just to do all this legwork? And should we be handling that, or should we be addressing that with Bruce and coming to an agreement on the cost that we're putting in to see if we can accommodate them?
Mm-hmm. Right. Right now, I am not aware of any billings that have come from HRC for the time. I do know that he has attended quite a few meetings at my request, and we do need to utilize them for their expertise in learning the ins and outs of that, but so far that would be limited to that. But that's why I'm asking Bruce Township to do the engineered analysis of their own equipment. It shouldn't be at our expense to do that, so putting it back on them. So that's where that stands. All right, moving on to unfinished business. The payment in lieu of zoning amendment, ordinance 482. I presented, obviously, my first draft at last month's meeting. And based on the feedback and direction that this board gave me, asked that it be implemented into the existing areas of Muni Code that were already there, which is Ordinance 428, Section 46-314. And that's what you have at your table in front of you this evening. So, has everybody had an opportunity to review that? Questions, concerns, comments?
I do. Something small to start off with. On the second page, on letter C, big letter C, then little b after that. The end of the sentence kind of trails off there. We need to finish that sentence. Just says 25% of this requirement must. We need to finish what it must be.
Yeah, that's already existing, so I don't know what it's there. I'm thinking it says requirements must be met, but I'll verify that, yes.
And then something concerning to me is, I do see that you did add in here things that we had asked for, but what concerns me is the things that you took out of it. I highlighted here, I went and copied out of my big black book there, the current ordinance, went through everything to see what was in, what wasn't, and there's a paragraph here that was removed, and we didn't speak about removing anything, so I just want to say it so that we all, if this is what we're going to vote on, that we're all aware that this was removed. That the paragraph reads, any use in the CBD district required to provide off-street parking may, there's a sentence in there that is included, these words are included, subject to the approval of the village council and after recommendation of the planning commission. That specific sentence is included towards the end of that document. This is taken out. Elected to meet the owner/employee parking requirements by contributing a fee as established by the village council to the Central Business District Parking Fund in lieu of In lieu of such requirement, on-site parking space. This fund shall be used for purchasing land and developing consolidated parking spaces in the CBD district. The amount of the required fee shall be established by the village engineer and shall be based on anticipated acquisition and development costs. Now, this last sentence is what particularly concerns me. Why would we be taking out the language by the village engineer and based on anticipated acquisition and development costs?
Could you tell me what section where it was?
It's the second page of the actual ordinance. To tell you a page number, I can.
I'm assuming it's 314, right? Because it
Here is
says
the-
section 315 in this document says it's reserved. I just want to know exactly where it was.
And was there something that was specific to the central business district that we were expanding? Was that why? I'm trying to remember. Because it was already existing for the central business district, and we were,
Yeah, remember us talking about taking out DDA specifically and not restricting it that way, or, and central businesses, they both are not equal in their plat.
Any use in the CBD required to provide off-street parking may. So.
Well, and specifically to that sentence, I had emailed President Malzahn after last month's meeting to ask for, at that meeting, we had spoken about the price, and that the price was based off of what the purchase and the cost to redo or turn into the parking lot of our property over on Church Street. So based off of that and engineer's recommendation, I asked Ms. Malzahn for that information. Where was that report from our engineers? To which she said that there wasn't one. We went back and forth a few times, and that concerns me that we came up with a price based off of a general conversation. So when someone comes and asks me off the street, how did you come up with this price? I'll say, I don't know, my president talked to an engineer about it. I would like us to make these sorts of decisions based off of facts and the paperwork and actual reports. It was my understanding when it was spoken that there was a report. I misunderstood. There is not a report. So I would like us to reconsider that price until we do see an actual report and a cost and an assessment of this project.
You're correct. There wasn't any report. There was a meeting that was held with several people looking at that Church Street parking lot, and that's what I said. We were basing that off of the initial cost calculations, which was roughly $95,000. I believe I said that number, plus the land acquisition that we know was another $100,000. And Mike confirmed during that meeting that he thought $10,500 was an adequate amount. It can be adjusted and amended at any time by a vote of this board. That's why we put those fee schedules into place. And we needed at least a starting place. We have been sort of kicking that can over. Who was going to set that fee? Sent it to Planning Commission, sent it to the DDA, and no one really was willing to take ownership. We did hear from our planner, Steve Casson, who presented a scale of what other municipalities do. From, I believe, the low end was $2,500 up to $15,000 for a parking space in other communities that have parking programs. So
basically, it was the cost of the project versus, or divided by the number of parking spaces that are there.
Which I completely understand and agree with, but I would like to see that paperwork. We should be making these decisions based off of reports and paperwork, not conversations. And what was literally said was, at 1 hour and 6 minutes, what you said was that came from the work that HRC has already provided to me. So that is why I thought you had received a document, because you said it was provided to you. So, misunderstanding.
Well, and I think there was an urgency to at least be able to offer that as an option, and it, at the time, couldn't last a month. I don't know what that was. And the number can be changed, so I would think we would keep that number, and if it finds that it needs to be addressed, we can revisit it. But you needed it to have it there, and
I guess the issue I see is, like you addressed, you brought it to the other boards for their recommendation. No one would make a recommendation. And before you brought it to this board, this is months ago, I brought it up and presented what our ordinance says. That's supposed to be generated by the engineer, not by us. And so you said there's a sense of urgency, but that's been months. That we could have had something done by the engineers and then brought to us. This is the report, this is what they suggest, not what we suggest. This isn't what we do.
months ago, we didn't have a
We just
purchase of
purchased
the
the
property. We didn't have that data.
But yet, there was still brought to the other boards for a suggestion on what that payment would be. So if we had no reason to do it then, why did we just go around asking the other boards, hey, what do you think this fee should be? No one would give a number. It clearly says in the ordinance, generated by the engineer. Now it's omitted. I see a huge issue with that.
I think it's just a simple equation. The cost of the project versus divided by the
I can
number
respect
of
that, but I
spaces
mean,
in
we've got an
there.
ordinance in place, right? Yet again, why don't we just follow it? It's pretty simple. If they've done the work, they've given the information, have them draft a letter or a recommendation. This is what we think the fee should be. Done. It's presented to the board. Done, said, over with.
And if you are asking me to do that, I'm happy to make that request to them. Again, it was a conversation that we had. There, were multiple people involved in that process, and I am comfortable and confident giving you that recommendation based on that. If you would like to see it in writing, we can certainly request Mike from HRC to do that and pay him for that service. The problem with the ordinance was that it did not account for how those funds would be used, which was an issue that you brought up, concerned. Does it stay with the building? Does it stay with the use? Does it stay with the, with
I mean,
the
it clearly
current
says how
owner?
the funds will be used.
It did not say
It doesn't say
that.
how they would be calculated.
It didn't specify that. There also is no consideration
I'm pretty sure it's in
for
there. I can read
overnight.
it word for word.
In the yellow.
No, in the original ordinance, that this is, it's not in, like Megan pointed out.
It doesn't say that we are going to establish a separate general ledger fund, that those funds will be used only for the purpose of the parking. The ordinance didn't say that. Mark, you have it in front of you, correct?
I do.
And that was part of your initial concern, not to speak for you. Am I correct in that? Yes.
Let me just mention a couple of things as part of not to include myself in the conversation, but to hopefully inform the conversation. With respect to the determination by the engineer, your current ordinance says the amount of the required fee shall be established by the village engineer and shall be based on anticipated acquisition and development costs. And so the form that you receive that information isn't stated. Does it have to be in writing? Best practices? That would probably be a good idea, but your ordinance doesn't require it. It just requires a determination by the village engineer. And I believe you have that. So I think the action that was taken, you can revise the number, you can change your minds, but the action that was taken last month, I think, was appropriate in terms of the procedure. One thing, when you're thinking about it, because of, again, your existing ordinance, I would suggest gently that you think about not just the particular property that the village acquired to establish the parking lot. That's important. That's probably your threshold consideration. We paid X number of dollars for this. We know the developmental costs are going to be X number of dollars. We do our double entry bookkeeping and figure out the number. That's fine, but your ordinance is just a little broader than that. It talks about be based on anticipated acquisition and development costs. So it's not just that lot. Hopefully, if there are payments in lieu of parking and that money is kept and shepherded properly, which it will be, that you will have the opportunity to use it to develop more parking. So I just gently suggest that in terms of your consideration of cost and what should the payment in lieu of that specific dollar amount be, to think of it not only in terms of the property that you recently acquired, but just more generally, what and I realize we don't have crystal balls. Who would have thought, in 2008, the property values would have plummeted, and now here we are, 12 years, 13 years later, and they're blowing up like anything else. Who would have thought that? So I'm not saying you should have in mind a specific dollar amount, but I suggest maybe you think more broadly in terms of applying your ordinance. And lastly, at least for the moment, the changes that you have before you, you can do with those whatever you will. I just recommend they be in ordinance format. If you're going to amend your ordinance, your existing ordinance, then you should have it in proper ordinance format. So I suggest that, and I would recommend that.
Thank you, Mark.
It's kind of similar when we discussed the payment for the merchants, and you had suggested not applying a fee to just one that would cover the entire cost of whatever would be acquired for trash pickup or whatever it was at the time. So you're saying basically the same thing, that we shouldn't just be looking at the current project.
Well, the current project is your jumping off point, unquestionably. And that information, I think, should be given great weight. All I'm suggesting is if you're going to have a conversation with the engineer about the specific cost, if you want that follow-up, to maybe inquire about what do you believe this number will be appropriate going forward, or do you anticipate, the engineer, do you anticipate having to change this? Just get some input, because your ordinance is not site specific. It's use specific in terms of parking. It's location specific, if you will, in terms of the downtown parking area, but it's not site specific as to the piece of parcel or the piece of property you just acquired.
Mark, when, I know that you received this, I sent this to you last week, I think.
Okay.
And I asked you that question, like, does this need to be in draft ordinance? And for your input on the way that it was presented. Obviously, I had an opportunity to connect with you, and looks like you have some notes there. So do you have some suggestions on how to move this forward? Is that something that we should meet on later in the week and look at that paragraph that Megan is concerned about?
In my review of this, I'll mention a couple of things. One is, and this is not in any particular order of importance, if you look on the second page, the language in section 46-316, most, if not all, of that language is already in section 314 of your existing ordinance. And so you'll have to ask yourselves, do you need this? If you do, then you adopt it. If you don't, if you're satisfied with what's there. On page 1 at the bottom in section 46-315, that last sentence, I wasn't sure about the import of that. There are also a number of uses located within the CBD which do not function alone and are dependent upon other uses in the CBD. That may be in your existing ordinance. It just seemed as kind of a tag along to the text that preceded it. I don't, if you're making that as a statement of policy, that's fine. If you're making that statement and then going to set the fee based on that, or if you're going to otherwise modify the ordinance, that's fine. But it just seemed to be, I just wasn't sure. I have a question. I'm not really taking a position on that. And then I thought in the last paragraph on the second page, 46-317, this is the area where Ms. Poznansky was referencing, I believe. That sentence it seems awkward to me that the application, all right, the process is, if I want a special land use or I'm having a site plan, I need to, as part of that, apply for a payment in lieu of. That makes great sense. Subject to approval of the village council, that makes great sense. But then I wasn't sure when you follow through to elect to meet the owner-employee parking requirements. That structure, that sentence structure, just seemed awkward to me. It didn't seem to read smoothly. It seems like there are two different things going on there.
Can I ask a question? Because this has kind of come up a little bit. Whose responsibility is it to write the revision to the ordinance? We talk about what we want to do. Who typically does this? I've been on this board 12 years, and we've had a number of the ordinances that are ready for us to approve, and it's coming. Did you not have enough time? Did you ended up writing it and then giving it to Mark? This has happened, I think, the last 3 or 4 ordinances that now we're discussing things that should be discussed before our meeting.
Okay, first of all, if the implication is that I didn't draft it.
I don't know. I'm just the process. It's just that we're discussing, I'm seeing this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I was feeling that this had already been approved by council, that you had reviewed it, and I'm confident that this is legal and good to work with, and we have council members that are pulling it apart, and I'm just kind of confused.
Okay, I can perhaps alleviate some of the confusion, maybe not all of it. First of all, I didn't prepare this. I wasn't asked to prepare this. Okay. This was provided to me. Mrs. Malzahn is correct. She did so a week or 10 days ago, and I did not respond until now. So the failure to respond is my responsibility. But the text, what is presented, I wasn't asked to draft this. If I had,
Were you normally? And just Mark, I've been working with you 12 years, or 11 years. And did you draft ordinances before? Because I actually thought you did.
I have, and in fact, most instances, this council has asked me to draft an ordinance.
Right.
You have a subject matter, you ask me to draft it, I do that. I wasn't asked to draft this.
Okay.
If I'd been asked, I would have.
Okay.
I'm not complaining that I wasn't asked.
No,
don't misunderstand me.
No, that answers my question. I'm good.
Okay, so I think that my intent and what you said about the contents of 316 in the existing ordinance under 314. My thought process was that 314 refers to area, height, and placement requirements, which doesn't seem fitting for the special parking fund requirements. Area, place, and height requirements don't seem that it should include payment in lieu of when I look at the header of that. And so in the essence of time, being that it's 8:30 and we still have a lengthy agenda to go to, Mark, can you and I, we'll set a time and we can review this and you can draft it accordingly, and then we can bring this back to next month.
Absolutely, and I'll just mention that section to which you made reference, that the heading is, it's not inaccurate, it's just too narrow, because it does say height and placement requirements, but then further on in the text of the ordinance, it sets forth the determination of the fee by the engineer and what's involved with that. And so that heading is misleading in terms of what the full effect of the ordinance actually is.
So let's just meet and go over that and make it appropriate. If we're going to amend it, we might as well amend it to be as accurate as possible.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Now, can this wait till December's meeting then?
Yeah, we're not in any hurry to do it. It's
Okay.
just, we have the fee established.
All
That
right.
was the most important part.
Okay,
Right?
very good.
How the process flows and the questions that are generated from not being clear in the language is it's very proactive and needs to be done.
Okay.
But one more month to ensure accuracy.
Perfect.
Is right for all. So
All right.
I'm gonna make a motion to table this until December or January.
I'll support that.
All in
January.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, also in unfinished business, you have the RFP utility rate study. This was drafted by Vitrano Consulting. This is a template that he has utilized in other RFPs that he's created for the village, so he didn't have to reinvent the wheel on this. I did have a couple of comments and suggestions. During that Bruce Township Subcommittee meeting, I asked HRC if they thought it would be beneficial in our negotiations with Bruce Township to have a consideration and analysis done on the cost of Bruce Township in their 30% capacity versus a near 50% capacity, which is where we would be if we did approve their additional 3.83. And I think the consensus of the subcommittee was that it would. So that's not reflected in here, asking them to do that scope of work. The other thought that I had, I asked just for your input and feedback, should we add cost calculations to switch the entire system, our entire water system, over to Great Lakes Water Authority? While I have no intention to do that, it has been posed, if something happens to the wells, to the aquifer that we draw our water from, we would have an option at least to understand what that cost would look like, what that would do to our rate structure, which I think will actually further prove the need for us to protect our current asset, because this isn't a move that I want to know, but I do want to have the information. And as long as we're doing a rate study, I think that may be useful.
Yes.
I don't know if you agree or not.
A couple things popped up when reading through this. If this is what we're going to use. And under the background section, it talks about the village.
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
I'm sorry, front of second page, background. I believe it's second sentence. It talks about the village is part of Washington and Bruce Township. I think we should clarify that we're not part of. I mean, we kind of hover above. We're an incorporated village, so we're self-governing. And then also towards the end of that paragraph, it talks about, which is ultimately transported to the GLWA to be treated. That's also incorrect. We treat our own.
Yeah, I caught that too. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
so
what? That's why
if
I was
this is
wondering
getting sent
who prepared
out,
this.
we should definitely probably clarify some of those.
Good catch, yep.
Has Mr. Vitrano been to our facility?
No, I don't believe he has. Not to the wastewater treatment plant. I don't think so.
Well, that would explain that then. Because Al does a very good job of explaining how it all works when he goes through his tour.
Absolutely. Okay. So we can certainly address that. Was there any other items that needed correcting? And is everybody in agreement that we would also include into the scope of work those two additions?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're sending this out, asking for people to do this study for us. This isn't something we can handle in-house.
No. Typically, as I pointed out last month, this was done, a rate study was done by our auditor. I think the last one that I presented you a copy of was, I think, 2014. The date's escaping me. Yeah, I thought it was 2014. Yeah, and so the auditor has always done the rate study. Tim presented his suggestions for where the rates should be adjusted, strictly based on accounting figures.
And
What
that's
does it cost to operate
last
that
year.
facility so that the enterprise fund is self-sufficient, so that we're not funding it to the general fund? But the goal here was to, one, set the structure correctly so that we could consider eliminating our minimum usage bill, which will assist our lower income and seniors. They're just gonna pay for, and that was one of the comments that they said during that coffee and conversation, hey, I'm not using this, why do I have to pay for it? I said, well, the rate.
6 months of the year
The
I'm
rate
gone.
structure says that, right. I said, I can't guarantee that your rate per unit wouldn't go up because the costs are static, right? We know what it costs to operate the facility. We need to generate that much revenue to keep it running. But if there are users who are using more, they pay the higher rate, and those that aren't using it pay the lower rate. And I think the rate study should determine whether or not that's feasible. So, yes, we would be asking a company to bid on this proposal.
And we'll look at what the costs are and who's gonna do it and make a decision whether we even do it.
Correct, based on what the
Right.
cost calculations and weigh the benefit.
Yep.
So, I'd like a motion to move forward with the RFP. I'll have those two items added in, and I will correct page 3 under the background summary, and then get this posted on the mitten.
I'll make a motion to approve the RFP.
Support.
That was Edwards, Kosanski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Me.
2.
Okay, so 5-2, all right. Al, you're up. 2 wastewater treatment issues.
This is two separate issues.
Yeah, 2.
New business, item A, wastewater treatment plant variable speed drive purchase.
Yeah, we have, a few months ago, we gave me the okay to purchase a pump. Well, our variable speed drive for that pump is down as well. I didn't bring it up at the same time because we were looking to see if somebody could rebuild it for us. And it's taken several months and they can't. They did find a refurbished one with a 1-year warranty for $5,500. We did look into a new one for $9,300 plus another $2,400 to install. Justin he actually looked at a price for me for a Siemens. He gave it tonight, and that was about pretty close to $9,000. I would like to go with the $5,500 one. I'd like to have the same equipment across the board. You got 3 pumps down there for the tower. I want all 3 of them to be the same. Same equipment, same everything. And if we have another one go down, we can't get a hold of it, then I'll probably come to this board and ask to replace all 3. I don't want to just replace one. So I'm asking tonight to replace the broken one with the $5,500 refurbished one with the 1-year warranty.
Now, could I ask, who, or I guess it doesn't matter who, but did you have more than one person come to see if that one could be rebuilt?
We had a couple of companies look at it. 2 of them told us no. The one that has been able to repair stuff for us before is the name of the company ICR. They've done a lot of repairs for us when other folks couldn't. And they've had it for a while, looking at it, trying to get the parts. They couldn't, so, we looked at, talked to Christine, and looked at getting a price for a new one too, just to see what they are. But I think for now, I'd like to just replace it. We don't have to replace the cabinet or anything like that. We just replace, it's almost like a slide, you just slide the board in. There's a little bit more to it than that, but we took it out, we can put it back in. I'd like to do it that way.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward and allow to purchase this unit, so $5,500.
Okay, there's a motion by Bartholomew that was support by Parker.
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Thank you.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
President Milburn?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Got a Crown Vic you want to sell now?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We have an old police car we got from the police several years ago when they got rid of it. We haven't been using it. It's getting in bad shape. We would like to sell it. The village, put it up for bid. Like I said, we're not using it very much at all. It's been way more, and we probably still, at this point, still get a few dollars for it.
And I think in order to sell that asset, Mark, would be to draft an ordinance for the sale. That's what.
Because it's personal property, you don't have to. You do if you're selling real estate, but because it's personal property, I don't think an ordinance it's my opinion, an ordinance isn't required. You can do it either
Resolution.
negotiated sale, or you can set it up for bids. However you feel you'll get the most taxpayer value out of it, you can do it that way.
Any thoughts on how you want to proceed?
Is there any benefit to the village from just donate it?
You can't donate it. No.
tax.
It's public, purchase with public monies. There's no public purpose to donating. It'd be like trying to making a donation to the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, or
Understandable.
can't do it.
What year is it?
2005. 16 years.
It's right there. It's the number.
Put it online.
The last time I think we sold them
On
is
the
somebody
village
was
website.
taking them over to the demolition derby in Armada.
Yeah, we'll get
Right?
more. There you go.
I can call Mike Philbrook, see if he's interested.
Well, we'll get more than that though, isn't it? Cars are
$2,800.
expensive right now.
Well, this says,
Hey, you need a crown there?
this is about $3,000.
Yeah.
Three grand.
So $2 to $3 grand, yeah, you don't crash those.
Do you have a resource in your clerk's toolbox to list vehicles for sale on the Mitten or
On the Mitten,
on
yep.
any other municipal?
They have driver's training next door. You could post it over there.
There you go.
But yeah, on the mittens.
Some 16
Okay,
year old.
so we could just
For
post it
sale
for
of
sale
vehicles
there
there,
and
yeah.
see if
Yeah.
anybody's
Yeah.
hops on it? Okay.
Parents would love it.
You need a motion for that?
I put that on there.
Well, if we could, if there's gonna be a starting dollar amount, I would prefer a motion.
You should, I would recommend you have a motion, and also if the entry in that Mitten website, if it permits it, the right to reject any and all bids.
Okay.
This says private party ranged $1,900 to $3,900, with the average being $2,900. So if you want to set the minimum threshold at,
25.
What was that
well,
number?
I think that would be ideal, but is that the minimum? I mean, will we take $2,000 for it?
25 or best, 29 or best.
I think
We're
29
talking-
says
we're
it's
not-
the
Yeah, you got
average.
anything to say on the car? You know the car.
It's in pretty rough shape. The last one's probably went for $500.
Right.
I don't expect it to go for any more than that.
Where would we like to start?
Right. So, did anybody make a motion to list it on the Mitten for sale? I'll make a motion
Second.
to list it on the Mitten for
Yeah.
sale.
Second.
With the minimum entry bid, I'll just say $1,500. I don't think it'll go that high. We can always reduce it next month, I guess, and try it again.
Sounds good.
Was that a second by Fowler?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So call a roll on that, please.
President Milzon?
Yes.
Fowler?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Bartholomew?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Moving along, we have a CARES Act funding projects and programs. As Megan indicated, we attended the well-informative Treasury Act webinar that was put on by the Michigan State Extension. And they have put some opportunities, some uses, and some restrictions on those monies. As I outlined in the cover page, they have said that the funding must fit into one of the following 4 categories to respond to COVID-19 public health emergency or its negative economic impacts. The 4 uses, also you can use it for, to respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to such eligible workers of the recipient, or by providing grants to eligible employers that have eligible workers who performed essential work. It can also be used for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue of such recipient due to the COVID-19 public health emergency, relative to revenues collected in the most recent full fiscal year of the recipient prior to the emergency, and to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So the other, the uses can be split into 4 different categories. I'm sorry, the 4 uses are split into 7 different categories. 1, public health. 2, the negative economic impacts. So we can use this money to assist nonprofits, households, and small businesses. We can use this money to provide services to disproportionately impacted areas of our community. We can use this money for premium pay, hazard pay for essential workers and first responders. We can use this money for infrastructure, water, sewer, and broadband. It cannot be used for roads. We can use it as a revenue replacement, but we cannot use it to reduce taxes or our pension debt. And we can also use a part of it for administrative, up to 5% of the allocated amount for administering the funding reporting requirements. Apparently, this is a very extensive application and audit trail. A lot of municipalities are actually not accepting their allocated amounts because they do not have the staff to meet the requirements of just handling the money and the audit trail that's going to come with it. So we can set up to 5% aside for that. I did ask Tim if he would be interested in doing that work. And I think he laughed, so I'm not sure if he was agreeable or not.
Never negative.
But I'm just throwing it out there. So I thought it was worth a conversation that we have at this board. And I threw out some ideas for consideration here in Romeo as we get this money. It looks like it's about $630,000, which is a significant amount. We had 2 years worth of goals, proposed capital project asset expenditures that I included what we talked about in 2021 and in 2020. A lot of these have already been done, but I just give them to you as what we've talked about doing in the past. And I throw out some ideas for consideration. We could purchase fully the generator that's needed for the wastewater treatment plant. That was an expenditure of $300,000. We talked about funding it over 3 years' time. We could save the interest and just get that purchase out of the way now. We could develop a program for utility bill assistance for low-income families. I thought that could be an option that the treasurer might develop. Obviously, there's a process that would be required and to be put in place. An application, somebody's going to have to do a background check. We would have to determine what the criteria is, what's considered low income. I'm not sure where those standards fall. And obviously then somebody to actually apply the money to their account. So just an idea. We could use it to install broadband in municipal areas such as our village park. Right now you can maybe pick up Wi-Fi on a good day from the coffee shop, but there isn't any Wi-Fi available there. Might be an idea. We could use it as a joint municipal collaboration or with Washington Township on a fire department. Something we talked about. We know we pay a lot of money for our Bruce Township fire. We could have a conversation with both Bruce Township and Washington Township, see if they're interested in creating a regional fire department that would service the whole community with the fire stations that are already in play in Washington Township and Bruce Township. Just a suggestion, might be worth thinking about. We could use the money for village park improvements. We could use it for new utility meters. We know that that was a wish list from Tim Metz, so that we no longer had to physically go up and read each one of the meters and write it in a log. That would really expedite and make more efficient that process every quarter. We could use the money for SAW grant improvements. We have identified, I think, was $5 or $6 million in areas of failing infrastructure from that SAW grant. So we know that there's some areas that need to be worked on, and use it for an administration fee paid to Tim Sadowski for reporting and audit requirements and receiving the money. I left a blank there. If anybody else has any other projects or ideas, would love to hear them. And then
first, I just like you attached the proposed goals and one of them, number 5, right? And Bob, I think it was you, because I think this is not the correct version. I think you changed village park improvements to encompass just village asset improvement, right? It wasn't specific to the park when we went through that process.
Yeah, and I don't specifically remember. That could be, though,
Yeah,
to broaden
I
it.
remember that happening. So
But the one thought that I have just from what you had just said, we have some big ticket items like that generator is something that we need to spend the money on. And if we have 600,000, we don't probably have to go after all of that. But if we did that, the accounting, the pay, if that qualifies, that should be a pretty simple cut and dry. This costs $300,000. It does that, and it's real money to us. When we get into some of the other things that would be notable, Sometimes if they're smaller dollars and there's a lot of accounting, it can be counterproductive for us to manage that thing. So my thought would be initially some of the things that we really want to do that are big ticket, and the generator sticks right out, that if that qualifies and we can get half the money on one item.
That would free up money from our budget in the next
Well,
couple
yeah.
of years to use towards roads
For any-
or
yes.
sidewalks or any other project that
The well is already
that don't
spent.
qualify for the use of these dollars, but, you know.
The well was 165, but we've already initiated that. Can we
Yeah.
go back, or is it, if we expended the money in this
Right.
year?
I think it has to be, Megan, I don't know if you remember the answer to that question, for new projects, not something
It's been completed?
that's already been.
I went back and listened to it already, the recap of it. I know that we can use it for projects. For instance, they talked about Parks and Rec somewhere. You can purchase property, a building, you can use it for it. It just all has to be tied back to somehow COVID, how we're supplementing due to COVID.
Could we use it to purchase, you said property, right? I know you said Todd had reached out to you in regards to taking over the liability or ownership of the catwalk. Could we discuss with him, if we take that catwalk, purchasing the property directly across, it goes street for street, and use that as a green space in the village?
Right now, Todd has indicated he is not interested in selling any of that former middle school location, right?
Okay.
So they have no interest. He said that they wouldn't have any interest, while they have no plans for it.
Yeah.
But they're really focused on the bond and the sinking fund and getting their,
I understand.
their projects off the ground.
An idea of if we took over that catwalk and utilizing it as a green space, utilize the catwalk, redo the catwalk, light the catwalk.
It's gonna be a green space. It's a green
wanna
space
say
now.
catwalk.
Finally, that the grass is
Respect,
growing,
until-
right?
Until what,
Until they
right?
sell
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and then you get
Right.
I
20
do-
new homes or whatever in there.
I do recall, we have a certain amount, we have up to 2 years to expend it all.
5. I think it's 5 years.
Because, okay, so say everyone wants to do their sewer, and we're all doing the sewer, everybody's already short on employees right now, and say all the municipalities in Macomb want to use the 5 people that do this, we all can't get it done at the same time. So they gave us a time frame of years that we can use it. However, it has to, we can't change our mind in a few years. It has to still be used for that project that we told the state we would use it for. If I understood that correct.
We gotta determine what we're using it for. We can't say, hey, let's put this much towards the generator and put this much in an investment until we decide.
That's where all
what
of
we're
that
gonna do with it.
paperwork comes in. They are going to be fine tooth comb over this. Every dime you spend, they want to know how, why, and how it ties back to COVID.
I think, I agree with Bob, generator is a very smart
Yeah,
it's a good-
We did something similar with the water tower back in the day. John Foltz and I got together, and we ended up paying whatever that fund was in full, rather than going out for loans and everything.
And not that, that is a great idea, not that I don't disagree with it, but I do feel our first step should be, our first question should be, how are we going to involve the public? What would the public like? What would our residents like? And from there, have that in the conversation. The council would like to do this. Maybe this would be something we would recommend. But definitely at that bottom, how you have, how would we get our residents' input? I definitely believe that that is a #1 thing we should be focusing on.
Yeah, I think somebody came into the village office just after this program was even announced, and they wanted to be notified of how we were going to spend it, and when they could have that input. And absolutely, it's key. It's coming for all of us. I just,
Is there anything on the village website about this at all?
There isn't at this time, because the seminar was just a week ago,
Okay.
week and a half ago.
You haven't done or anything?
Right, I don't.
They don't even
So
know,
you
they don't
is
even
there-
quite
is
know
there-
all of it either.
Is there a deadline to file, or just that we had to use it within 5 years?
Right now, we're in the process of just applying for the money. Again, there is a whole series of documentation that Catherine is taking care of, uploading it to the portal, and making sure that we qualify to receive the money.
And if you would like
So-
to go, SEMCOG recorded the Zoom meeting, so you can watch it if you want to.
On their website or something?
I would have to dig through my email and send you a link, but there is,
Email us.
it is there,
That'd be
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, there is a link.
And-
There's just a caveat that people need to understand that we just can't say, I'm gonna, give everybody $20 back because we have all this money to, reduce the cost.
Right.
It's not an allowable expense, as nice as that would be to give to everybody. Certainly
And-
want to see what they would benefit from
And
most.
they need to take into account that if we have accounting that's involved, if you're giving small amounts to everybody and we have to do a mound of paperwork, it could actually be
It costs more than $20
counterproductive
per
to do
person to
that.
do it all.
Yeah, so,
Absolutely.
I would think that it would make more sense if we kind of boil down of things that make sense because we know all those parts and then
Right.
get some, like what might be a priority on top of that.
You will see companies emerge that will do nothing but handle that administrative fee happily, right? Because once they do it for one,
If they
they're gonna
do
know
one, they can
exactly
do
what
10.
forms have to be filled out.
Absolutely.
And that may be where we need to spend 5% of that money. But I still think, at the end of the day, it's $600,000 and it will go a long way. My suggestion and recommendation really would be for that generator, as you all say, and then the utility meters that will free up a lot of time for our DPW, who could be on site doing
What was the
many
overall
other
cost of
things.
that? The cost of that project, what was that? I know, I think that was before I got on.
Yeah.
It was discussed on putting in a
There
maintenance
was-
or service fee to start generating money to cover that cost eventually.
I thought it was roughly $350,000 or $360,000. I will have to go back and revisit that. But that's where I thought that was, and that we knew it would be a long way off. We talked about doing it in phases, maybe doing the industrial part first versus the residential areas. But making sure everybody's meter is operating functionally, correctly, is beneficial
And
to
then
them
free
as
up
well.
time from-
Free up
Well,
time.
You don't have to have people walking through your yard and everything else either.
Right.
Free up time.
Have them
And
estimated
we
because the dogs are
utilize
barking and they
DPW
can't get back there, yes.
DPW.
I'd like to see us start with at least the online, and your suggestion of an online survey and a town hall meeting, maybe a mailer once we have the date or the time or the place, something to that effect.
Perfect. Do you want to tackle that online survey and draft it? And
Sure.
submit it, and then, yeah.
What form do you want it at? Like Survey Monkey, or
I
do
would
you
think
have
that's the
anything?
one that pops into my mind, but if you want to draft some questions and then bring them back next month, and then we could all weigh in on, is there anything else we want to ask to include?
So we can apply, establish money.
We already have applied.
Okay.
Yes, we already
So
have
we don't
applied.
have to determine what project we want to do to apply. That's not part of the application.
Correct.
Okay.
It is not. It's like the next step. Once we get approval from
And,
our application that we are indeed receiving this allocated funding, then we will have to identify those projects and file that documentation.
So not that we can't, but we don't have to rush and get this back on next month's agenda. We can give Megan a week or so to get it together, give the residents time, and we could look at this in
Because
January.
you're gonna have the
Absolutely.
holidays too,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Absolutely.
people aren't gonna be staring at their Romeo website during the holidays.
Do they
But
know
it's just
when
more-
they're going to confirm our acceptance?
There is a new email that was generated in the last day or two for those that needed to correct their applications. And so I think they're still working. There's a website that you can go on and you can check your status, and I think ours still says pending.
No, actually, I checked late last week and it says completed with our dollar amounts sitting there.
Okay,
Oh.
so that's great. I
All right,
didn't
so
know
it
that.
has,
So is it
as far as we're
600 even
concerned,
then,
been
or-
accepted.
No, they added change. It's like 633 and some change,
Okay.
but I can
But-
revisit
So
that.
they
But it
did,
say
they
complete
have
last
given
week.
us a go-ahead, that we're going to be proceeding. All right, that's awesome.
We get half the money at one time, and then the other half, it's not like they send us a check or auto deposit into Sherry $636, although if that happens, will you let me know, Sherry? If $630,000 shows up in our account, let me know.
She's gonna be taking vacation.
No, yes,
We have to hurry up and get that generator before it's $600,000.
exactly.
Because
That price-
prices
I
are
mean,
going up.
We know we need that, but yeah, so having this conversation and engaging the residents, you know, so that we can make sure that everybody's aware of our status. It's great, yes. Great. Okay, so let's move on to the rezoning request for parcel 0506-100-010 and parcel 0506-100-009. As Zach indicated, these are the two parcels that we annexed in from Ray Township,
I'll make
owned
a
by
motion that we rezone.
Zach?
Yes.
Zach, you're good with this? right?
Yes.
It was
Mark,
approved
do you want that
unanimously.
individually, like we had to do in the plan? Okay.
I would recommend you make a motion to rezone each parcel, if that's your intent.
Okay.
Do that separately, one for each parcel.
Yes.
I make a motion to rezone request for parcel 0506-100-010.
I'll second that.
There was a motion by Fowler, that was support by Parker. We want to call a roll? Yep. Please?
Fowler,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Poznanski,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
President Milzon.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0
Uh,
for
sec-
the
the second
010
motion would-
parcel. Sorry. Yep,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry. The second motion would be to rezone the request for 0506-100-009.
Support that also.
Motion by Fowler, support by Parker. Roll call on that, please.
Fowler,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
President Milzon,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Poznanski.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
I apologize to you guys if I thought I would have moved you guys up on the agenda. But I hope you enjoyed the meeting.
Oh. Sorry, we made you sit through all that.
For that, what did that take, 30 seconds?
I didn't even realize that that's why
Yeah,
they were sitting here.
I didn't either.
I apologize for that, because yes, we could have moved them up. All right, then item F, FOIA requirements and regulations discussion. Trustee Parker made this request.
Yes. So, some know, some don't. I was FOIA'd. I was by our clerk, Catherine Trapp, and for some photos of the village vehicle that were emailed or texted to me. And I was looking for clarification. Mark, are you comfortable, or would you discuss this at this time, or
I mean,
legal advice?
Right.
That's up to you. If you want to discuss it in closed session, you cannot do that tonight. I've not expressed a written opinion. If you want an opinion from me on the topic, I would ask for some instruction on specifically what the issue is on which you want me to opine. And then if you choose, you could discuss that in closed session at a subsequent meeting. So you cannot discuss this in closed session tonight. If you want to discuss it in open session, certainly that's your prerogative. If you have questions of me.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with.
And I can answer them, I will. I just will mention if you want to do it in closed session and you don't, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, so.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable with open.
Well, the one thing that we had all seen is the email that went through, and you had made some, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I
Before we
shared with Justin prior to the Bruce Sewer Subcommittee the information that I also offered to Ms. Poznanski when she had some concerns over the FOIA request that she received, and that Mark was willing to do that. It was his preference that we allow him time to prepare that, and that he give the same information to the entire board at the same time, that he wasn't looking to give specific legal advice in a meeting or to one particular trustee or another without everybody getting the same information. I shared that with Justin, and he then put an email request into me asking for the agenda item to be placed. I offered him a reply that, again, stipulated or suggested that next month would be better, that this is not an agenda item, a decision, or any authority that the board has to act upon. This is not a rule that we instituted, and it's not in our ordinances. It is a state rule. Therefore, they put into what any recipient has to do or not do. And I requested that Justin or anybody else be given the opportunity to submit their questions to Mark, and that we would table it to next month, because again, didn't think we needed to waste meeting time getting an understanding of how the FOIA law works and operates and what your requirements are as a recipient of it.
I don't need clarification. There's no purpose for me to go through it.
Okay, well, that's fine.
So-
It's still a topic I'd like to continue with. It's on the agenda. So based on the MCL 15-235, it clearly states only the Department FOIA coordinator or alternate FOIA coordinator will respond to a FOIA request, which brought a concern to me as to why the FOIA was directed to me personally and not to the village. And then the FOIA coordinator at this point should have reached out to me for requested documents, not responded to me with a FOIA with no direction.
Again, if you would
whatsoever.
like clarification on that, you can certainly put that in writing, and then Mark can address why that is the way it is.
As trustees, we
I
don't
make a motion
have-
that we table
I'm
this
sorry,
till next
I'm sorry,
month.
Bob, I'm still speaking.
Okay.
Thank you. As trustees, we don't have access to the lawyer. According to our rules of order, president, clerk, treasurer, pro tem, am I forgetting anybody? They have access to our village attorney, which they have used. President and clerk have gone to our lawyer and they've asked about the FOIA. We can't do that. So
You
doing it
can. That's
here,
not correct.
sorry, Bob, I'm speaking.
That is not correct.
Doing it here
very
and
correct.
asking a question is one of the two only ways we can do it. And if we would like it open to the public so that it is clear and open, this is the way to do it. We don't have any other choice. If we could ask Mark at a different time, I would have, but I couldn't.
Okay. That is incorrect. Based on what the offer was for you, is to actually give, if we're going to contact our attorney, if any of us have questions, put it in a written form, and Mr. Clark would have to put a written opinion, and his opinion is what is being requested.
Yeah, but that was
To
a written
put this
opinion
out
to go into
in-
closed session.
To put
There's
this
no
out.
reason to go into closed session.
They're
I just asked, and he said
okay.
he's clearly willing
Right.
to discuss
Right.
tonight.
But
So
he
why are we
does-
gonna put it off?
Because he doesn't have an opinion. I would, if I,
Go
I.
into closed
Okay,
session.
Let me
we can
just
only
be-
one person can speak.
Excuse me, before you get too far afield with this, let me just, so you don't lose sight of the context, is because I express an opinion, a written opinion, doesn't require you to go into closed
Correct.
session. It's just, if you want to discuss this in closed session, it has to be based on an opinion, written opinion I express. So I just don't want there to be any confusion. You could ask me to write a written opinion. You could give me a specific question or a detailed set of questions. I can express an opinion in writing, and you can still discuss it in open session.
Right.
So I just don't want there to be any misunderstanding about what you do with my opinion.
And what I was just part of the email that I got that, and I thought that made a lot of sense. It's nothing that I see that is urgent, that we had to have that.
Well, if I'm
You
being
pushed
told I
it.
need to respond within X amount of days, and I haven't had clarification or any guidance from the FOIA coordinator, then yes, I have concerns and issues that need to be addressed immediately. If Mark is willing to answer a few questions.
I'm here at your pleasure, so you can.
So first, do I have any
Yes.
direct liability to respond, anyone on this board, I should say, respond directly to the FOIA, or is that the FOIA coordinator's position?
I'm going to have to take a half a step backward to answer the question.
Thank you.
First of all, if you look at the Freedom of Information Act, it only requires a disclosure of a public record. So your threshold question is whatever's requested, and I'm not addressing this specifically to whatever's going on between you and Ms. Trapp. It has to be, your threshold question is what is being requested a public record? If the answer is no, then that's the end of the inquiry. That's it. If the answer is yes, it is a public record, then you have two questions that follow or flow from that. One is who created or who has the public record. In other words, the individual or the body or the group, the public record has to be created or generated by somebody. And so you could have a public record that is in private hands, and it might not necessarily be subject to a FOIA disclosure. I'll give you an example that may not apply, but I'll throw it out there just for your consideration. I get a water bill. My water bill is a matter of public record. The treasurer, the DPW, somebody sends me a water bill. I get it, I recoil in horror, and then I write the check and I go to the village office and I pay it. Now, if somebody submitted a FOIA request to me for my water bill, I'm a private citizen. It's a public record. I would have no obligation to disclose it. So again, I know I'm repeating myself, but it's important. Is it a public record? If no, then no more questions. If it is a public record, then who or what entity generated it? And then secondly, or as part of that, is there an exemption? The Freedom of Information Act presumes transparency, openness, the so-called sunshine laws. Let's let everybody see everything. The idea is disclosure. The premise is disclosure. But there are exemptions. There are pieces of public information, pieces of public record, or portions of public records that are not subject to disclosure. And so the inquiry is it a public record? If it is, then is it subject to an exemption? And who has it? And is that person required to disclose it? So you apply that analysis to all of your inquiries, to all of your FOIA requests. And whether somebody off the street comes in, fills out a FOIA request, submits it to Ms. Trapp, her first review should be, is what is being requested, is it a public record? And if it is, then you go through the other analysis. Even if what's being requested might be a public record, but there is no record of it, the Freedom of Information Act does not require you to create a record to satisfy a request. So what's being requested, if it existed, may be a matter of public information, but if it doesn't exist, you don't have to create it to satisfy the inquiry.
So if images of a village vehicle were transmitted to me from a private party, is that subject to FOIA?
Well, it's subject to FOIA. You can submit a FOIA request for anything, anytime.
Would you consider that a public record?
Well, I have more questions.
Okay.
First of all, what if you are given information? You mentioned a photograph. So if you're given a photograph, then I have to go sideways for a minute. I went backwards, now I'm going sideways. If you are given that request, then typically, and under the statute, it doesn't matter who the requester is. And by way of example, you cannot deny a request because, well, I don't like this person, or this person was snotty to me in the line at Kroger, and so I'm not going to answer this. No, you don't get to make value judgments based on who the requester is. But you do have an interesting, everybody recoil in horror when a lawyer says, hey, that's pretty interesting. But you have an interesting situation where it sounds to me, if I understand it correctly, that Ms. Trapp, as the FOIA coordinator, makes a request of you individually for a public record. That's, for lack of a better term for the moment, that's like a reverse or inverse FOIA request, because typically, if you look at the statute says that requests for public records are made to the FOIA coordinator. That's where they come. So if I think that somebody's got pictures of vehicles, public vehicles, that I want to see, I would come into the village office and say, fill out a form that says, I want copies of every photograph of public vehicles that you have. And so Ms. Trapp might say, well, do you have one? Do you have one? Do you have one? She looks through her records, nobody has any. This situation is non-legal term, it's upside down, because you have the FOIA coordinator making a request of you. Can the FOIA coordinator do that? Yes, but under the statute, the FOIA coordinator would in essence submit the FOIA request to herself, because if you look at the statute says requests for public documents are made to the FOIA coordinator. So I would just suggest to you that the posture of this is not ideal. How about if I leave it there?
So the one thing I would like to say is this is very specific. He was offered an opinion. You do have access to our attorney, but it is filtered through the president of the village. I can't sit there and just say, hey, Mark, I want to take a half hour of your time and I want to talk to you this and that. You know, Mark's giving us all an education on something that he's very specific. There's a situation between two people. I know why you want it here. You want to have a public thing that you can say, hey, I've been asked for this. Simply, in a meeting,
Because when I asked to the president, I was told just to give her what she wanted, basically.
Well, that's probably, I would say the same thing. You mentioned in a meeting that people gave you emails and photos of the car around there. You said that in a public meeting. She said, okay, show me the pictures. Now, if you don't want to, you have it in your phone and somebody sent you a picture and it's too difficult to send, or you don't want to send it, or you don't have it, why is this board sitting here going through this? You have the opportunity to write a specific, Mark, very specifically, do I have to follow this or not? You probably wouldn't have to wait till the next meeting either to get an idea of what he was going to give us.
The response that we got when I asked was that we could go into closed session next month. That's what's the response.
If you
the
wanted
response
to,
that I got in the meeting before the wastewater, the sewage thing, was basically just to respond.
I don't have a fight in this, but if you got an opinion from Mark that he said, hey, you don't have to do it, or you do have to do it, you wouldn't have to wait till the next, we probably wouldn't even need to meet on it. We don't have to be in a closed session or open session for this. It's very specific to you.
So
and
again,
it's a weird,
reaching out through the channels, then I should have got a very direct response on what was just said, but I didn't. I didn't get that.
You didn't pose that question to me in the first place, so do not turn my...
I asked you what I needed to do.
And I said, Mark is willing to take your written questions and give you a response. That's what I told you. Put it down. If you don't want to send it to me, you can hand it to him at tonight's meeting. He will give you a response. That we did not need to waste board meeting having this argument and this discussion for one specific instance that is affecting you directly. I offered Megan the same opportunity to do the very same thing, and I haven't heard back from her, so I assumed that she got her questions answered. She also asked if I'd be willing to sit with her own private attorney to go over the situation, and I asked her, I said, yes, I would. Give me a date and a time and a name, and I'll see if I can accommodate that. Again, it's 9:15. I'm sure everybody else here would like to go home, as would I to answer this specific question for your concern when Mark is willing to do that. Is a great waste of our time.
Motion to adjourn?
And trustees...
Well, we need to vote on this. But
Right, so trustees do have access to our legal counsel.
Yes.
Yes,
they do.
And not fluent, and that's an issue.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah, no, smile and smug, Bob, because maybe
We're not
you
going
get
to
a different
argue.
response.
We're going to move on to the special event
In
permit.
response,
You weren't denied it. You were able to ask that question. You were denied nothing.
You were told that.
You were. All right, let's move on to our special event permit that we have in front of us from Jamie Lucero. I think Megan made a motion at the beginning of the meeting. Does that motion still stand to approve? Did we have support? There was support by Parker. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Motion to adjourn?
Support.
Motion by Bartholomew, support by Hart. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yes, if you would turn in your closed session minutes to
Green
Catherine,
pages,
please.
please.
Thank you.